everyone. Welcome back to Beneath the Surface. I'm Crystal Hefner, and I'm really, really excited because my next guest is Lara Love. And Lara is extremely special to me because she is the collaborative writer on my book, which launches on Tuesday. So this is the first podcast leading up to book launch. It's Friday, and we are so excited for Tuesday. Lara and I dive deep about the process and go behind the scenes and beneath the surface of what's to come in the book. It's gonna be emotional. It's gonna be great. So I'm really excited, and here's my chat with Lara. Hi, Lara. This is funny because we talk like every day anyway.
I know. This is all official.
So yeah, official. Now it's being recorded.
I know. How excited are you for your book coming out in a few days?
I'm really excited. And, of course, the first person I want to talk to about it is you, because we did it together. So yeah, I'm really excited to kind of go through it and get people excited because it comes out on Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah, and this is the very beginning was us meeting.
Yeah, I just looked. I was like, when was that? It seems like forever ago, but it was February of 21.
Wow. Okay.
When we met.
Okay. And then we met through one of my friends named Beth, who introduced me to you. And at the time you were with a different company, and now you have your own company, True Literary, which you're very busy, I know, lately. I remember yesterday you're like, this person's writing me. They want to do a book. Do you know them? I'm like, no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because they heard about your book, and it was like a similar story, a little bit similar themes, not different story, but some similar themes, which is interesting. But I looked back at like our first messages. I remember when we first met on Zoom, like I was literally in my pajamas. It was like so.
You were. You looked really good. Whatever. I just remember thinking like.
I was like, I thought I was just advising you as you're looking for an agent. But one of the things, I just screenshotted it. But one of the things I wrote, like, I read the follow-up email I wrote after I met you, because I was like, oh my God, this is such a powerful story. And I wanted to win as your agent at that point, right? Like as you're interviewing agents. But I wrote, this is before like we had really talked or like I've heard much of your story, but this is what I wrote to you and your friend. I wrote, I think the path forward is really going to be about creating an arc to Crystal's story that will resonate with people, entertain without being salacious, be beautifully honest, raw and real, and ultimately have true impact. And that was like before we'd even like first like gotten into it or met in person, just from that first Zoom meeting. And like, gosh. I think you did all that.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that's really beautiful. And yeah, I think the way you worded it and what ended up happening was pretty magical. And I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Yeah. Oh. I know, real cry. I just made myself cry for my own words.
I know. I feel like I wrote down questions, but now I'm like, oh. In the intro, I talked about you and your background and stuff, but I don't know if you want to touch on it here, or do you want to a little bit? Do you want me?
Yeah. I mean, you want to do it, or you want me to do it, or?
I don't know. I just love your story, like all the way from the beginning, like you like loving reading and getting lost in stories, and then starting to write your own, and just do you want to, maybe you're be good at your background. I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's okay. It's fine. It's so weird because we talk every day and you're not nervous, but now we're nervous because it's official. But
it's for the world.
So I think people to know, like, I'm a literary agent. Like, so I'm your literary agent, right? Which means it's like a sports agent, but for authors, right? We help you like find a good publishing home and make a book deal for your story. In my background, I've been working at a literary agency for 12 years and working as a collaborative writer. And part of my story is, that I was doing that for many, many years, working with amazing people. Like you can see a little bit of the people on the wall behind me.
Yeah.
and keeping this secret about my past, that I was a former addict, a formerly incarcerated woman, and just really working really hard to prove that I was good again. And really, like, books and storytelling and writing were what I did through a difficult childhood. It's what I did in school. It's what I went to graduate school for. And then, I stopped writing for a long time, and then came back to it after losing everything. And it was like, okay, how do I do what I love again? I got the opportunity to work at a literary agency as a part-time assistant 13 years ago. And when I left a year ago to start my own agency, I was CEO. And, we met right at that transition period. And after, collaboratively writing, ghostwriting many books, I wrote my own. And so as you're going through the process of us working on your book, I had sold my own book and was coming out with Simon Schuster, and went through that book launch. And, we were working on yours up until my book launch time. And so you were very patient with me as I was going through this process that you're about to go through, which is like getting out there and doing book tour events and interviews and meeting people. And, as an agent, I've walked a lot of authors through that process, but after doing it myself, it gave me a lot more empathy for how hard it can be sometimes, and sorry, my dog, I have
That's
5
cute.
dogs and they're kind of barking. Um, it's my audience. Yeah, I would read them chapters of my book to test
That's
it out.
so cute.
But I think, that, like, the fun of meeting people, and the fun of getting messages from people, to hearing how your story has resonated and impacted them, like, that's about to start for you in a few days. And that's like the best part, I think.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm very nervous, but I don't think I'm scared anymore. And when I learned about your book and read your book and going through the process, and you telling me what you were going through and those steps of it coming out, like that really helped me as well. So it's kind of cool that our books are like one after another. And
Yeah.
I do remember, I don't know if you sent me the link or someone else sent me the link, but it was your TED Talk, and it talked about how, you don't want to be defined by the worst thing you've ever done, and people shouldn't be defined by the worst thing they've ever done. And I do think about things I regret and like holding on to that shame. And I think you helped me in what you went through and just your stories. It just really helped me like let go of any shame that I had. And it just made me feel free to tell the story. Like, here it is. Like,
Yeah.
all this weird, craziness.
There's so much freedom in that, and just being honest, like, and just getting, like, I don't know, for me, I felt lighter after telling all the worst things and the worst version of myself I've been. And I think, our stories are vastly different in circumstance, but I think that's one of the things I really related to your story with, was both the shame and also sort of the biases and judgments people can have against you for whatever reason, right? Like, oh, you've been to jail, you must be this way. Or, oh, you're a beautiful Playboy bunny, you must be this way, or whatever it is. People have assumptions. And I think when you go through certain hard things, like, it helps you to not have those assumptions. Because look, when we met that first time, and then you like watched my TED Talk, or maybe it was before, or read that, I was like, oh, is she still going to want to work with me? Like, it's always this interesting moment for me. Now it's not so much, but back then I was still like testing out those waters of being like honest and just being me, and seeing who sticks around and who doesn't, And so,
Yeah. And I feel
but
like
I think there are surprising similarities, even though very different.
yeah. I think there were similarities. And I know when you talk about like jail, and I talk about being at the mansion, and I know, it's different, but when we were like, oh, I went in 2008, like, oh, so did I, like, like this is,
I know.
it was very interesting parallels. And
You had better food in the mansion, I'll say that.
oh my gosh. I don't know, actually. No, it's kidding. Oh my God. So funny. When we did speak, I did think how you mentioned, oh, well, people want to work with me when they find all this stuff out. I thought the same thing. Like I had this imposter syndrome or I had this like not good enough, like, oh, my story isn't good enough or something. When I spoke to you, you know, especially you have all these bestsellers and you've worked with the greats. So I did feel a sense of imposter syndrome, but you made me feel very comfortable and, you know, that the story should be told and also from a narrative that isn't as familiar to the world, because I feel that, you know, Hef did control the name. I'm like, I said Hef. I'm like, oh, that's the word. He controlled the narrative
Yeah.
for so long in his life, and I think it's time to finally, you know, tell the story from another side. Because
Yeah.
it wasn't easy. It wasn't
Yeah.
the Shangri-La that Hef always thought it was. So
Yeah. It's interesting because I think like memoir in general, like it really helps you integrate your story, right? Like there's something about getting it down on the page where you're like, oh, here are the themes and the threads and the patterns of my life. And it helps it all make sense when you get it like a narrative
yes,
around it, you know? And
yes,
I think, you know, I'll tell this story because I think it's like important because I know a lot of people are like, why tell the story now and all of that. But I don't know if you remember, we were working on the book proposal. And so for people who don't know, like you write a book proposal, which can take a long time, and then the book gets sold to a publisher, and then you write the full manuscript, and then, you know, and then it comes out the store. So it's a long process. So we're working on the book proposal, I remember. And then I remember calling, I don't know if it was you or your friend. It might have been your friend first, because I just was like, I didn't want to, like I was confused, and I was like, I just read something like in Us Weekly or something about this being a fairy tale, like it was such a fairy tale or something, and we were working on the story that I was learning from you was different than that. And that's when you told me the thing that ended up becoming the title of the book. Do you remember?
I think I remember. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It
remember
was like,
telling you that.
I was like, but yeah, it was like, why are these different stories? And you're like, oh, well, he made me promise to only say good things. And for 5 years I did. And it was like, oh, now you're going to tell the truth. Like I didn't realize that you were like, like when you said that, it was just like the lights went on. That's like, you know,
And
when
I
we
was
started discussing that for
scared.
your title.
I was scared
Yeah.
because, you know, we put it as the working title. And I remember I kept saying to you, like, oh, maybe, I don't know if we should change it or maybe we should. Because because I felt maybe shame or maybe that I was letting somebody down or something. I'm like, oh, maybe if we put a different title. But that title is the perfect title. And it's the
Yeah.
truth. You know, it's only say
Yeah.
good things. And that's what I promised. And it's kind of funny in a way because it's not only good things are in there. So it's very
Yeah.
good.
I mean, I what I love about the way you tell your story is you don't only say good things and you don't only say bad things, right? Like it's just the truth, which is complex, which is there's good and there's bad, and there's light and there's dark, and
Yeah.
there's, you know, everybody has a shadow side, right? And I
Yeah.
think that breaking free of that control, which you did to be brave enough to tell your story, like you broke, you know, like I don't want to say like brainwashing, but it is just like a decade of like a narrative that was imposed on you. And to break free of that takes so much courage and strength. And you know, I mean, when I talk about working with the greats, like I include you in that list now because you had
Oh,
so much courage and strength to I'm gonna try and make you cry. No. But I'm not just saying that to say it. I mean, like you had such bravery in your world and in your way and in your story, which everyone does, and it's so hard to like break out of a narrative either that someone else has imposed on us or a narrative we've told ourselves, which is like often even harder
yeah.
to break out of,
Yeah.
you know. And you were courageous and you were honest, and you are like what I was surprised working with you at first was just like how brilliant you are and how freaking funny you are, right? Because I
Oh,
don't think like, and you got funnier the more you trusted the process and trusted me. You know what I mean? Like the more you
yeah.
became yourself and more
Oh,
comfortable sharing your story. So that was amazing because you are hilarious. I don't know if people
oh
know
my
that,
gosh,
but
you are. You are. I feel like, I mean, you don't stand up. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
badly. Yeah.
it was easy to, be light and fun with you because, you are very funny. And yeah, especially with a lot of the hard stuff we talked about in the book.
Hmm.
People ask me, they say, what were the hardest things to talk about? And I say like sex and death. Like
Yeah.
both of those were hard, and I appreciate you like helping me get through those times
Yeah.
and helping me um, write everything in the best way possible. And the example that I'm going to go to that's kind of the extreme one is talking about what happened in the bedroom that first night when I
Yes.
came up from the party and a bunch of stuff was going to go down, like everything you expect to happen in there. But I wanted it to just be the most detailed as possible so that people could really imagine themselves like in that bedroom putting on Hef's like colored pajamas for this
Hmm.
like whatever was about to happen. I remember going to it and like going into it with you with like so much detail, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna take this. Like, I'll be back to you with everything with this
Yeah.
specific chapter. And then I remember like talking about it after and like totally laughing, and because you're like, it was heavy on you too to have to dive in there for someone else. And then I remember you said you went downstairs to your family and you're like, oh, give me a second. Like
Yeah.
I just had
Yeah.
sex with you, Hefner. Like, hold on.
Yeah. It was, well, yeah, it's funny because when you like getting all those details, and you had so many pictures, which I mean, not of that sex night, but pictures of the room, and really describing the baby, like all the things that people can read about. And it was funny in a way because I'm asking really like, so who was where and what was where and what happened then? What did like as if you're hearing about it in a very sort of like, I don't know, very
Like
detailed way.
factual. Oh yeah. And then you're
Yeah,
just
like
like,
because
does it
you're
go in the
trying.
butt or does it go in the thing? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, I
And
need
then
to know
like,
the
you say,
facts.
excuse me, or how do you take turns? Like all the things, right? Like just kind of get immersing in that world. And then, and because like good writing is visceral, like you want people to see and feel and experience what you are, and I think good collaborative writing is like this extreme empathy, like where to really convey the story you've told me as you on the page, I have to be you, right? So I remember writing that whole chapter to share with you, and again to go back to that email, like we want to be honest and not salacious. So it was like, I mean, it's a little. Yeah, but people can read it again. So, but I remember I went downstairs and it was like a Sunday evening, and my husband and my son Caden, who's a senior in high school, were down there, and they were kind of like, wait, no one's planned dinner, like coming to me for dinner. I was like, you guys, I just had sex with Hugh Hefner for the first time and it was a lot and I cannot make dinner. And then I just like their mouths dropped open, then I just turned around and went back upstairs. I was like, it was a lot.
Oh,
Let me
oh
just
my
tell you.
gosh, that is a lot. I'm like laughing. Jeremy's
So
laughing.
I know you went through all that, but I got out of cooking dinner. So it's kind of like,
Oh my gosh. Whatever
but
helps.
I think the things that were hard were sex and death, and I think the death was harder. Like the parts, even sending you, like, taking your story and your words and kind of moving them around on the page and sending them back to you. Um, you often the chapters that dealt with death in various ways that's in the book were hard for you to read, and even when we had the final manuscript, you were like, I gotta skip over those right now and come back, and I think that was harder in a way because we could do a lot of humor around the sex conversation,
Yeah.
and loss is painful, and all the losses you had that you share in the book were painful for you, and it's hard. It is always this like trick when you're working with someone on a book. It's not a trick, but it's like this place to like receive all your stories and not re-traumatize you because you're telling them, right? And it can be really re-traumatizing. And I've worked with other people who are telling really traumatic stories in books, and there is always this moment where you have to just like take a breath and be careful with people and like sort of process the process of retelling the stories too.
Yeah.
And I think that was those losses that you share in the book and the loves that you lost that you share in the book
Yeah.
were really, I think, the most powerful in my experience working with you when you were telling those stories and reading your stories back, and all of that. I think that was really, Playboy, yes, and there's a lot of great stuff, but it was really that early, that earlier in life things for you, pre-Playboy Mansion, that were hard to write and hard to feel your pain as you were feeling it.
Oh, yeah. A lot of those were hard, and I appreciate your help. And I know that you've gone through a lot of loss as well yourself. And yeah, I remember editing and you mentioning like, oh, it's the publisher, like this is one of the last rounds, and so I go like chapter 1 and then like chapter 3, like skip through.
Yeah.
Like, I can't read the sad stuff. But yeah, that was hard. It did help me realize that there were so many things earlier in life that affected me. Probably part of the reason I ended up at the mansion. This as we kind of unfolded in the book, the being kind of broken and easily preyed upon, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and I think too, it's this, it's so relatable, even if it's not, again, not the Playboy mansion and someone super powerful and famous and all of that, but just that feeling of wanting to belong somewhere and wanting to have a home if you've lost that as a child and whatever, all the various ways people lose things like that. I think that's going to be really relatable to people and women, especially that way it makes you feel when someone makes you feel special, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wait, I'm special. Like, I related to all of that, even though, again, not, my direct experience, but like, it's so relatable for people. All of the themes in your book, I think, are going to be really, really resonate.
Gosh. Thank you. And yeah, the part about belonging, I think some people maybe value that like as much as love, or even more, like just wanting to feel like they belong.
Yeah.
It's sad.
And that like security of having a home, like a permanent home, right?
Yeah.
Like that's something, like when you, again, people read the book, but there's the point when you're moving into the mansion for the first time, and that sense of like, oh, this is a home.
Yeah.
Like I really felt like that's what you were seeing it as, not as a party place. It was like,
I
oh, I'm
know.
gonna have a home,
So
and I think people don't. I think people will be surprised at a lot of the things in your book when they read it.
yeah, me too. Yeah. I feel like I'm being judged already for it,
Yeah,
but that's without anybody having read it yet.
yeah,
Because I know Candace Owens on her podcast, she said something about Crystal's books coming out, and she knew exactly what she was signing up for and just kind of raked me over the coals. And I tagged her and called her out, and she sent me, I said, you haven't even read the book. And she DM'd me and she's like, send me a copy, and gave me her home address. So I'm like, okay, I hope she's an example of people just giving me a chance.
yeah. And I think it is an example of that bias and assumption, right? And no offense to Candace Owens, but I think it shows an intellectual laziness on people to judge something before they've read it, right? Just based on what, like, when we do that to people, I think it shows like a compassion laziness. Like I think it's not a good look, Candace. Sorry. I mean, it's just not. Like read the book, like don't just comment on the book to get attention for yourself. Like read the book and have an honest conversation around it. And I guarantee you when she reads it, she's gonna find things that are gonna be relatable. And everyone will, and people judge, like, what people think about us. The saying goes, it's none of our business, but it doesn't feel like that, right? Like it feels, and you're about to enter in the vulnerable time of like book reviews now that when your book comes out in a few days, right?
Yeah, we got 2 back. And they're positive.
Yeah, the trade reviews, which are like for the industry and the signals to book buyers, came in and they're amazing. Kirkus and Publishers Weekly.
Wow.
And those are amazing. And people, people are going to people. They're going to judge and they're going to be people.
Yeah. And Joseph Papa, who's both of our publicists for our books, he was saying that those reviewers could be negative. Like they don't have any, they could be completely negative. They can say whatever they want. But the fact that both of them were positive was very good.
Yeah, it's very rare. I mean, as an agent, I've read a lot of reviews for those books, and they were amazing reviews. One of those industry ones is known as being a very grumpy reviewer, and they were not grumpy with you.
Really?
And they said the book was empowering, empowering. And that's amazing, because it is, I think, for you and for other people.
Yeah, I wonder what...
I have a good question for you. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So when we first met, you said, I want to write the book that I wish I had read.
Oh, that's going to make me cry.
Okay, good. Sorry, I don't mean to make you cry.
It's okay.
Do you feel like you did that? Are you making me cry?
Yeah.
Let's call this podcast Two Crying Women. That's the name. That's the name.
No.
That's my podcast name.
Yeah. Definitely. And thank you. I know, right? Like, oh, there's like mascara coming down. Oh gosh. Thank you. Seriously. Obviously couldn't have done it without you and in the way that it was done. And it does make me think of being younger and not having any of the tools, like in life really. But now I like loud and proud. I can be like, this is my story.
I know. Crying and I mean, you said that to me. You said I want to write the book that I wish I had read when I was young, and I just think about like how many. It's not even just young girls. It's like old people like me, like every age. Like I think that, like, where do we find our value? Where do we find our worth? And it's so. That issue of like thinking our value is in what we look like or what man we're standing next to or what our status is or what any of those things, like it hasn't gone away in the world of Instagram. I have a 22-year-old stepdaughter. It hasn't gone away, who is, so I think it's really powerful that you did that and that it was so important to you to try to write the book that you wish you had so that it can help other people.
Yeah.
Like, and that you're going to go through all of the judgment and clickbait podcast people, whatever it is for people.
It's so hard to be so judged by so many people, but people want to just like chew you up and spit you out, but we're all just human trying to do the best we can.
Yeah.
It's like life is short. Why hate on people? But yeah, I'm still recovering in ways from that place. It was like 10 years of my life, and it's been 6 years since, and I'm still trying to unlearn certain things. But what I know now is if I had a daughter and there was any type of iteration of that place or that life, she would not be anywhere near it. So, whatever, all the circumstances that we talk about that landed me there, hopefully it won't be repeated with my family in the future or any other young girls in different situations. I just, I know stuff like that still goes on, and it's sad.
Yeah.
And social media is toxic. Everything's toxic. Value, being skin deep. It's like we're still trying to get over that one. So there are a few lessons that still need to be learned. But, if we can help, one person with this book, like, I'll be happy. And I think we already are. So, yeah.
Well, if you had a daughter in that situation, you were going to get her, I would be the driver of the car.
Yes.
I would drive the car. You got a team of women around you. We will go in full force. But I think, I've seen so much, like, how do you think you've changed over the process from like working on the book to now it's about to come out?
Oh my gosh. I feel like I have better boundaries. I feel like the book has made me feel like I have more value, not just under somebody's umbrella. Like I feel like I can stand on my own 2 feet. And I think, you helped me get there, and I appreciate that. And, reading your story as well, like you going through your journey, and it's hard, but being on the other side is awesome.
Yeah.
And I like being able to be like, okay, I've been through a lot of shit. You can read about it. No, direct. Have any questions? They're all answered in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I always have people like, is there anything off limits? I'm like, have you read the book? Like, you'll be the same way. It's like, there's not a lot off limits. But I think there's so much freedom. I mean, I think your subtitle is Finding Yourself. And I think like it's a really good, Surviving Playboy and Finding Myself. I think it's a really good subtitle because just in the, couple years that I've known you and that we've been working together, you just like, your voice has gotten louder and more confident, and you trust even though it's hard. I think you trust more easily. Like I think and not in a naive way, but like in a smart way. The people who are there to support you and you're kind of badass. Like I think you're just realizing it, but you are.
Thank you. Definitely learning from the best. But thank you so much. I mean, I'm really excited, and it's cool. And I am trying to use my voice. I started a podcast. I got some haters, but I don't think these people really realize that. I came from a place that I couldn't speak up much. And I felt really awkward when I did, so I just didn't. And so now I'm practicing, and here I am on a podcast. But so just going to keep going. And if the haters are watching too, then even better, right?
Yeah. Haters are watching.
Yeah, they're fans. It's fine. Yeah. But I really, really appreciate you and appreciate you being here for the launch of this. I know. I feel like I don't have to change the podcast name to like only say good things instead of Beneath the Surface. Maybe for the book part it changes.
Yeah. I mean, I think beneath the surface is too, because I think even when people look at the book, they're going to assume like they know what's in it beneath the cover even,
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
it is like there's so much. I think people are going to be really surprised at your story, and just like you have a lot to say. You have a lot of powerful things to say, and you said them, and it's very brave, like I said, and it's going to help so many people. And I think that, you know, you certainly speak up a lot more than when I first met you. Just I think the process of telling your story, and you're going to do that even more. And I think to remember that like what's coming up on Tuesday is the fun part, right? Like this is actually the fun part coming up, which is the book comes out and you're going to get to meet fans at bookstores and go on the, you know, TV shows as you and your voice, and not in the ways maybe you did it in a little chapter you called Pray in your book,
Oh
right? So I
yeah.
think it's going to be really I think it's going to be fun, and I want you to have fun. I hope you have fun with it. It should be fun.
Yeah. So I still have a bit of imposter syndrome, but I'm just gonna power through. But yeah, I told everyone when they asked, "Oh, how do I get the book signed, or will you be signing?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'll give you a mailing address, so anyone who wants their book signed, I'll sign it." Because, you know, I feel like, okay, if people care enough to want me to sign their book, then
Right.
absolutely they'll get it signed. And you know, I know that you feel the same way with everyone who's been reading your book. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't give out a mailing address, but that's interesting.
Like they're like all
No,
going to
I
your
mean
house.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean it is like it's a lot to put out a book and to write a book, and then you know to do the audio. How is recording the audio for you? Because I know a lot of people are going to be listening to your book on
Yeah,
Tuesday
so
when that comes out.
they did say when I was there, like, oh, you know, it's okay if you get emotional or cry or, you know. And I did throughout reading it, but I didn't cry. And, but it did seem really, I mean, it was really emotional reading it all. Um, and I actually liked it. I really liked reading the audiobook. It was kind of an introvert's dream. You just sit in this little square by yourself.
In a little booth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this little booth and just read, and then sometimes you'll hear the little voice like start over or whatever. But
Yeah. Say that again. Yeah.
yeah, there was something like cathartic about just reading it all the way through, like
Yeah.
speaking it out and closing the book or turning off the
Yeah.
iPad or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But
It can be intense though reading it. Like when I
yeah.
narrated mine, I felt it was like it was interesting. Like it was more intense than I thought it would be.
Oh, did you cry on yours?
I got well when I was in there, the producer was like, "Okay, if you get emotional, you know, we'll stop." And I was like, "No, I'll be fine. Like I'm gonna be fine. Like you know, this is business. Let's just go with this." And then the first thing I read was the dedication to my four boys, and
Oh,
immediately like started crying. And I was like, "Okay, maybe this is gonna be a little harder."
oh, who
Yeah,
were
there were
like the
certain
most
parts
amazing
I choked.
boys.
There were certain parts where I choked up, and then you know, reading it back, like editing is never done on a book. You know, it's like
Yeah,
like it's just never done, right? Like you could always change something. So reading it back, I was like, because you're reading from the final version, I was like, oh, I want to change that, and oh,
yeah.
but but it was fun. It was a lot of work, but it was super fun.
Oh,
And I think people really appreciate when the authors, especially a memoir, and like do it's in their voice, it's their story,
yeah.
as opposed to someone else, you know, an actor narrating it or something. So
Yeah, I appreciate
great that you
when
did
people
it.
do that. I think the most recent one I listened to was like Prince Harry. Like he did a good job. Ah, but yeah, I'm excited and I can't believe it's
Yeah,
almost here.
so
Oh my
excited.
gosh, yeah. I'm like wiping away my earlier. Oh, that's so cute, Jeremy. Like the tissue to wipe my face is Santa. It's Christmas toilet paper.
Oh my god,
I couldn't
I'm
find
just using my
That's
sweater.
awesome.
Kleenexes. I couldn't find
That's
Kleenexes.
awesome. Oh, that's so cute. Well, I better let you go because you're about to talk to the New York Times.
I know that's true
So
about you.
I know it's so weird. You're
Awesome.
like, I'm talking to the Times about you, but yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'm excited for your book. I'm excited to go to your book launch.
I'm
at the
so
Grove or
excited. I'm
wherever.
like, I know. I'm like, Laura, come to everything, please. Like,
Yeah,
I can't do
I'll
anything
be
without you anymore.
yeah, I'll be there. Because it
Oh,
is the fun part. It's the celebration part. It's a
yeah.
lot of work writing a book and
Yeah.
launching a book and then all the things. So
We're
I'm
gonna
excited
celebrate.
to
We're gonna
support
celebrate
you.
both books. We're gonna go on a trip together. Or like trip upcoming. That'll be so much
Yep.
fun. And
Yeah.
yeah. So a few days my book. In the meantime, Laura's book. I want everyone to read Laura's book. So
Yeah. My hardback ones will be here any day, but this is the advanced reader copy. So
I have
I'm excited.
this hardback
You
of
do?
this one, but inside is like a different book.
Oh yeah, because that was the one they sent you for
Yeah. They
yeah.
demanded ransom for in return for captured ships and crew. I'm like,
Maybe that's your next book. Yeah.
I know. Democrats attacked furiously. Hillary Clinton called a press conference. I have no idea what this book is. Whose book that is.
That's hilarious.
But anyway, thank
Awesome.
you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me on and celebrate.
Yeah, let's do it. A few more days. Thank you.
Bye.
Talk soon. Love you. Bye.
Bye.